Hello everybody and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're going to be taking a look at a three-way 2v2v2. Does math add up on that? I hope it does. Anyways, 3 teams of 2 going to be vying for control over Trefoil Remake, a 3-way map, which is not something we see a lot. It's kind of a weird way of balancing things. The direction we're heading, though, as Legion is rapidly encroaching on a finished product. It is eventually going to be... we're eventually going to need a match where we have Core on one island, ARM on another island, and Legion on a third island. But at least as far as today's match is concerned, we've got 3 different teams that are all going to be vying for control over this toxic waste-looking map. Yeah, it's got these kind of... Or not toxic waste, what is it? That's nuclear waste, isn't it? Right? With the different... the 3 different symbols and then the little radiology symbol or whatever. I don't know my symbols, man. I just talk about Beyond All Reason all day. Crownick 007 going to be the blue team leader here today, although 11 open skill versus 17 for Shinpin. I guess that makes Shinpin the leader, but not the blue player, which is a bit strange. Sometimes that happens when you're playing these games with multiple different teams, when it's not just 2 teams. Sometimes the colors get a little mixed up. Our red team today going to be a Barbarian leader, 17 open skill as well, and Cobalt Store clocking in at 13. And then we have Obelisk and Chemdude clocking in at 14 and 17 as well. So actually, relatively balanced team. Sometimes this could also mess with the balance a little bit because one team will get, say, 30 open skill player and then a 10 open skill player or something like that. But these are actually relatively balanced teams. So we got a couple of newcomers. We got a couple of slightly more seasoned players here. That makes me a little bit excited because it does mean that at the very least we're not just going to be sitting around porking up for a while. No, I was looking at the replay for this and I was hesitant to cast this game because one of the problems that often happens in these 3v3 or well 3-way 2v2s. Take your pick. I think there's enough 2v2s in there. Just pick as many as you need. One of the things that tends to happen in these matches is essentially the 2 players that attack each other are weakened, and the third team can go in for the kill and win the game. So there's this weird disincentivization to attack until you can literally beat a 2v1, right? So you're you're disincentivized from attacking your opponents because essentially as soon as you start attacking your opponents, you're going to start draining your resources, they're going to start draining their resources, and the only team that isn't fighting is the one that's not draining any of their resources, so they can just continue ecoing, continue growing, continue making units, all that sort of good stuff. It's a bit of a weird situation because it means that essentially, yeah, both of these teams want to build up as quickly as possible, but not necessarily fight each other. They just want to keep building better and better armies. However, I say all that with the caveat that, however, this replay was around 20 minutes, I do believe. I looked at the replay time, and it was about 20 minutes. Which is a lot shorter than usually that situation drags out for. So certainly we're in for some sort of high-octane situation this time because a 20-minute 2v2v2 is definitely quite fast for what we usually see in this sort of a game mode. Not that we usually see this game mode much at all, but when we do. A little bit of an energy stall right here for Shinpin, as it looks like the bright cyan commander here is going to be setting up a little bit of a fortified zone in the midsection of this map, trying to claim these 3.1 mexes, and I'm a big fan. Those 3.1 mechs are going to be a wonderful influx of metal right here for the blue team. Disregarding this 3.1 can be a crucial mistake, that we need to capture these outer islands as well as the central islands here. Obviously, the central island is where the most concentrated density of 3.1 mexes are, but it's also the hardest to hold, right? So there's a risk and reward to that. If you can hold these mexes, you're rewarded with a lot of metal. If you can't, then you've wasted a lot of time and resource. Resbots are great for eating up a whole bunch of the rocks and trees and whatnot lying around the map here, but it is about time that we start thinking about grabbing these geos. As the player in the backline, I wouldn't mind seeing these geos taken, just in order to start pumping out energy for the team. We've seen Shinpin is basically completely energy stalled this entire game right now. Oh, do we manage to sneak this LLT in? It's a really weird interaction, but sometimes, very sometimes, what you can end up doing is finding a spot where you can put an LLT where the enemy LLT won't be able to shoot it, but your LLT will be able to shoot theirs. Some sort of height advantage, and there's some range advantages. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but there is... I've seen it happen before. Sometimes there's a specific spot where you can put an LLT where your opponent won't actually be able to see it. Or won't actually be able to fire at it. Fire at the LLT, rather. Now this is essentially what I was expecting, though. We do have the Green Army positioned right here to guard these mexes, but not necessarily claiming any of them. Cobalt Store setting up some LLTs to try and push the advantage on this northern side, says, hey, if I can't fight you in the midsection, there is no reason to fight you in the midsection. I'll just wrap around this northern side and grab the mexes over here. It's not like you're really getting much more out of that midsection now, so there's not really a reason to fight. I may as well just take these other mexes that are available out here. At least that's what I'd like to see. Cobalt Store a little bit idle on the front lines here. Setting up that mech would be wonderful, and then, of course, continuing to expand with those LLTs. Grunt's taking a decent fight over on this side. Aggravators shooting themselves in the back right here. Grunt's quite fast, which means that those aggravators do have trouble hitting them. All said and done, a decent trade right there for Shinpin, who's got to be more than happy with the way that that fight went, considering, of course, that Grunts are quite a bit less expensive than a lot of the units that they just blasted down. Garpike pops out of the water, and just like that, finds an opportunity to start attacking a valuable resource here, the construction bot, meant for the expansion right now for the Green Commander. It's going to start trying to pop that geothermal as well. It'll be able to. Well, it'll be able to deny it anyways. That's a whopping 300 or so metal right down the drain from that blue tank. Nicely done. The con here, also a very valuable snipe, though. And we are going to get it. Resbot sent over immediately. Oh, tank tried to get it, but wasn't able to. Alright, Resbot is nice because, of course, we can resurrect that constructor. But this tank is now in the backline and causing loads of issues. Mex is going down, and it's good to see a little bit of aggression coming out right here from the blue team. This is how we're able to end a game quickly, is if we actually send some units to go try and fight. This tank has certainly got its value worth. 220 metal to build a Garpike, and it's managed to kill, well, 220 metal in just the geothermal, but not to mention another 200 in metal extractors as well. So this single tank has definitely done more than enough to justify its expense, meaning, of course, that it is, a nice way of setting the stage right here, softening up one of those sides, opening up an opportunity to aggress in that direction. Love the idea of those amphib tanks. They're not something we see all too often, but on a map like this, it makes a lot of sense to go for those amphibious vehicles, trying to send them across the map around the backs where there are exposed angles from all sides to try and engage at. Barbarian leader trying to set up that land economy. Those wind turbines are quite powerful. Naval, or tidal speed isn't looking bad either, though. At 20 tidal speed, you're just barely less efficient than a fusion reactor, which means you're looking pretty good as far as going for energy production goes. You could even, at that point, start considering building E-converter economy. Going for a couple of those E-converters, going for a couple of those naval constructors to just build a bunch of tidal generators. They build tidal generators pretty quickly, and so setting up a whole bunch of those isn't usually a bad idea. It's a double negative. I should avoid those. I should say it is a good idea. Always improving, right? Oppressor, Destroyer, Battleship. I guess that's 3 titles in one. The Destroyer, Oppressor. Or the Oppressor named Destroyer? Anyways, the heavy battleship here in red, going to be firing away at this tank alongside some of those frigates, the Riptides, all of which will be more than sufficient to blast down the vehicles. Bots are essentially vehicles, but on steroids. They're extremely powerful, extremely costly, but extremely powerful. Means that in a one-on-one fight, vehicles versus the boats are going to take the win. There is the issue, of course, though, that you can't be wasteful about it either. You have to be careful not to throw those boats away because they do leave behind a pretty corpse. And oftentimes, they leave behind the full corpse, too. This was something that was brought up, I believe, during one of the Fight Night casts, was that boats, when they die, unlike vehicles and bots, they don't turn to debris very quickly or very often. They, most of the time, will end up just turning into their wreck, whatever it's called. They'll turn into the resurrectable corpse, right? Which is worth quite a bit more metal, which means that those wreckage fields are almost always worth quite a lot. Green now completely commandeering this section of the map. We're not spacing out our wind turbines, and we're not reclaiming the metal extractors. Definite blunders right there from the Green Commander Obelisk. Easy things to improve. Spacing out your wind turbines by just going ahead and selecting your wind turbines, holding Shift, Alt, and then hitting Z or X, Z or X will space out your wind turbines. If you just space them out by one click, just like that, they won't chain react. It's a super easy way to prevent yourself from being obliterated by just a single bombing run or something like that. T2 coming up and online for the green player Obelisk here. Looking to go for T2, but also spending metal on a lot of very expensive structures. We never resurrected this bot. We never got this geothermal back up and online. We're paying for T2 essentially completely out of pocket while meanwhile engaging with the army. It's a very expensive way of trying to pay for T2. Not to mention, of course, the thugs that are now streaming out of the laboratories and headed out to the front line. Medium tanks and mass right here from Cobalt Store are going to start aggressing through the midsection of the map, and it'll be Shinpin losing the midsection of metal extractors. Thugs diverted. They were initially meant as a anti-green force, diverted here towards the orange front. Not paying attention to the commander. That's one of two commanders down right here for the blue team, and that's the red boats managing to snipe that comm. Nicely done here. Looks like a little bit of slippage. Yeah, the blue team aggressive right out the bat, but it made them a target, and now just like that, the green team and the red-orange team going to be going to be working together against the blue team. Lovely stuff. It is the risk you run. It is the issue with playing a game with more than two teams. You suddenly have a little bit of politics. Yeah, suddenly that morale, the political game comes into play, right? How much have you fought your opponents? Is there bad blood there? Will they fight you back, or are they willing to, you know, let bygones be bygones? In this situation, Cobalt Store, all he sees is metal, 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 and that's going to be more than enough right now to keep pumping out a bunch of those medium tanks. Love to see it. We need to continue to spend it, and at the very least, save it. We are going to start overflowing metal, but, you know, when there's only one other teammate, it's pretty easy to see where that metal's going. Sometimes in an 8v8, it can be a little strange to figure out where that metal is going. Oftentimes, you have to, you want to intentionally send the metal to a teammate on your line. That way you're close to your line. That way you know that the metal's going back somewhere relatively close to your front lines. In a match like this, though, you know exactly where the metal's going, so I suppose it's well worth it. The blue team completely forced out of the water at this point. Crown Nick 007 trying to rebuild from the ashes here. We do have a Mex command coming up, but then we also have those torpedo launchers, those coastal torpedo launchers coming up here as well. The red army saving the blue by killing the green. Yeah, that's a nice snipe with the Navy. Taking out two of those destroyers basically for free is going to be a lot of metal going back to the red economy at the very least. We've got T2 Navy coming up. Oh my goodness. T2 Navy costing a whopping 3,200 metal. It's a gargantuan expense. Certainly much, much more than the red team actually has access to here. Nowhere near the economy to fund all this. At the very least, nowhere near the units saved up to defend in order to pay for all this over time. Thugs here engaging against the Wolverines. Obviously prioritizing that riot tank would be top priority here because it's, well, splashing away at a whole bunch of these units mercilessly. Mass thugs. Thugs, and some more thugs. Trying to build a couple of shuriken here. I like the idea of the shuriken. Obviously, shuriken can make fairly inefficient or impossible fights into efficient fights. Oh, look at that. The red player with a all-attack command, a dumbfire command, firing on the ground in order to destroy the debris of the lab right there. Kraunik delaying the reclaim on that lab and not able to get the resource out of it now. Nicely done by the red commander. That's just, it's a little thing you can do, but it is really useful to know that you can use your units to actually completely deny reclaim. Just as it, just by blasting it to smithereens. Yeah, reducing it to atoms. This hurts my soul to see. We're still producing destroyers, which are the most metal-intensive unit in the game. Or in the T1 Navy, anyway. And we're going for T2 Lab, and we're going for build power here. All of this is wrong. Any one of these would be correct, but all three at the same time is wrong. Obelisk builds a Navy Lab. No production, though. I think T2 should be where our focus lies. Yeah. Eating up as much metal as you can and getting these T2 mexes up and running, making sure that the T2 is up before you really start pumping out units or buildings or anything like that. I think it's going to be very valuable at this point. Wouldn't mind seeing maybe eating up the T2 lab right now and handing that metal over to the lime green commander. That way the metal gets dumped into the laboratory or into the T2 lab, and then you can make a T2 con to eat up that lab, however you want to do it. Sharing that metal around. I feel like teamwork is going to be extremely important in a 2v2v2. There's only so many players, right? Go here, they are super weak, says the red commander. Parking a destroyer right outside the base right now of the Cyan Force. Shuriken, not sure where they should be going. There they go. Jumping on the destroyer and paralyzing that, allowing it to be pounced upon by a whole bunch of the thugs right here. Lovely stuff. Cobalt Store setting up a T2 cannon right now, but will be beset upon by a whole bunch of shuriken here, meaning that the fiends get killed without really much of an effect. Yeah. Probably could have. Well, there's still a lot of them, right? So this is the difference. The green team has paid for their T2 economy by retreating back into their line. The red team has paid for their T2 economy with the corpses of the blue team. So it's pretty obvious to see how one of those is quite a bit better here. Wow, I'm impressed with thugs. I mean, that was quite a fair miss micro right there from Cobalt Store. Should have surrounded rather than dove into the middle of all those thugs. It triggered the flanking bonus, which meant that the thugs got a way better fight than they really should have right there. They are fairly tanky, though. It's not a fight we see all too often, the Fiends versus the thugs. But in a matter of moments, the Fiends have burned their way through that entire army, leaving nothing in their wake but slag and debris. And now they're headed directly towards the blue base. Oh, this is exactly what I wanted to see. Wind turbines, now blasted by the flamethrowers, and boom go the wind turbine fields. Chain reacting beautifully, like fireworks in the night. Ah. So majestic to watch those wind turbines all explode in a matter of seconds here. Too close together and highly explosive. Sounds like a chain reaction to me. Shuriken doing their best, but again, Shuriken are just a band-aid. Not a permanent solution. And definitely not big enough to cover the gaping wound that is the Fiends, burning their way through the blue base right here. Devastating the economy and absolutely destroying the blue team. Nicely done by the orange team. What a little bit of a comeback, yeah. Cyan Commander Shinpin held the midsection for quite a long time. Lost it, though. Getting a little over-greedy, overzealous, over-expanding. And eventually running out of steam, while the red team focused on getting that tech up and running and getting those units pumped out here, and is now pumping out those very high-powered T2 Fiends, and getting tons of value with them. We need only kill the last commander here. We're losing a little bit of sight over the objective right now. Killing the commander would win you, well, at least one of the sides of this game. Opening up the opportunity to send in Resbots, send in Khans, send in whatever you wanted to go build all these metal extractors. Kraunik realizes it and dives into the water, hoping to win himself a second place. Always a treat when you play an FFA and there's always one commander, right? There's two commanders that duke it out in the end. They're all, you know, T3 battle and everything, trying to, you know, bombing runs and fighters and T3, all this cool stuff. And then there's one commander that's sitting out in the ocean and just waiting. Yeah. One of the reasons a lot of people complain about free-for-alls. They're worth it, though. It's worth it to play free-for-alls, especially just to learn. They do bolster your skills of macro management, trying to keep multiple different front lines satisfied at the same time. I find them pretty interesting. I think there's a lot to be said about it. Fiends, though, finally finishing up over here, cleaning up this island, and opening it up for a whole bunch of expansion. Domain expansion. One thing we could do is peel a couple of Twitchers off. Twitchers are very fast, so sending the Twitchers around to go grab all the mexes wouldn't be the worst idea. It is worth it to grab all the mexes, and then, while you're grabbing the mexes, have the T2 con upgrading them to T2 mexes. That's because those T1 mexes give you a bit of a refund when you pay for them. Or when you pay for the T2 mex, pardon me. It means that when you buy a T2 mex, you get the 50 or so whatever metal back. When fusion reactor on the front line. What? Okay. That's a bit strange. I guess it's just where the build power is, so we feel like putting it here, but I feel like a fusion reactor over here wouldn't be the worst idea. Well, anyways, the orange commander apparently looking to dump a bunch of that metal into something, and so chooses the fusion reactor here. Not the end of the world, of course, but it does look a bit funny. Still, though, Fiends are so powerful, and that's really all it takes this entire game. Whole bunch of Fiends moving forward. It's the aggression winning out over the defensive mindset. It's just like that. The Fiends do manage to burn through the second base now. The base of the green commander, the commander who has tapped out of the game at this point. Leaving behind his buddy Chem Dude. Both those commanders resigned from the match. Well, I think we're ready to call it. We'll go ahead and speed up to 8x speed here as we watch all the boats encroach on the blue commander here, who is just, you know, having a wonderful time making a new paradise out at sea. Seasteading to the very end. trying desperately to laser down some boats that he can. Only a matter of time before those destroyers do eventually get over in this direction, though, and seal the deal here. The self-destruct command is initiated. You'll never take me alive, says Kraunik as he sacrifices himself. And the red team captures the win in this game. Torpedo bombers were up and coming to end this match, but definitely an interesting showcase of a cool three-way battle. Awesome to see a battle that isn't prolonged inevitably, but just everybody porking up defensively and not wanting to fight. Cool to see the aggression right here. Some attack and counterattack right there. An awesome expansion from the blue team, and a wonderful replay, or a wonderful rebound from the red team, pushing back into this game. Thanks a ton for watching, and I sure hope you enjoyed. And I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason.